This is Dr. Miracle, and I'd like to welcome you to my video series on diet, health, exercise, and weight loss. Coming to you today from the beautiful Catalina Mountains. They're just absolutely spectacular. If you heard this one, a goose walks into a bar and the bartender looks at him and says, "Your pants are down." I'm talking about plantar fasciitis, which typically affects a lot of basketball players and runners and people who are on their feet a lot. Plantar fasciitis is inflammation of the plantar fascia. In this video you will learn what is the plantar fascia, how does it get inflamed, and what to do both to treat it and, more importantly, prevent it. Have I had plantar fasciitis myself? Well, in the early 80s, when I was running around 80 miles a week, I would wake up in the morning and it would take me roughly 2 weeks to get from the bed to the bathroom, a distance of about 10 feet. As the day wore on, I would start to be able to get around a little better and actually be able to run. But since I started running backwards, especially backwards down steep hills, my plantar fasciitis is a thing of the past. Also, my Achilles tendonitis is gone, since running downhill backwards stretches the Achilles tendon in addition to the plantar fascia. What is the plantar fascia? It is a thick and somewhat broad band of dense connective tissue that more or less hooks up your toes with your calcaneus, or your heel, and supports the instep or the arch of your foot. Here we have a diagram. This is like a lateral view of the foot, and the plantar fascia is a somewhat gray/black colored band stretching from the heel up to the toes. You can also see the Achilles tendon coming down behind the tibia there. Plantar fascia is a dense fibrous band that spans the bottom of the foot from the calcaneus to the toes. How does it get inflamed? Repeated stretching motions, such as running when it is not either ready to stretch or stretched out enough to allow a full range of motion, having to carry too much weight, excessive impact, sprain, strain, or being overstretched, as often happens with basketball players when they have to jump up and then come back down, maybe not quite centered over their feet. What to do about this? Well, the best thing to do is to keep the plantar fascia stretched out to its maximum range of motion. Lose weight if you're overweight should help. Vitamin C will always help. And once you've sort of gotten over your plantar fasciitis, it's a good idea to do some of your running in low support shoes and or run in the grass barefoot or with low support track shoes. Brooks Johnson, who was the coach at Stanford for a while, used to have a lot of his runners run hundreds barefoot in the grass to develop foot strength. Today's new shoes and radial tire shoes tend to support the foot so much that you never develop any real strength in your feet. And if you want to run or play basketball or anything like that, foot strength is extremely important. How to stretch your plantar fascia? There are many ways to stretch it, but the best is to run backwards down steep hills. If you can incorporate some downhill backwards running into your daily run, you will keep your plantar fascia well stretched out. This will really reduce your chance of getting plantar fasciitis. How to start? You'll start out on a small and soft hill. This soft hill, as you can see, is at one of our local parks here in Tucson, Himmel Park. Or possibly a ramp at your local basketball stadium or even your football stadium. It's a good idea to run some of these hills backwards, uphill. This is a good way to strengthen the quadriceps. Running backwards typically strengthens the fronts of your legs. Running forwards typically strengthens the backs of your legs. When running backwards downhill, it's a good idea to take short steps that are well placed and not try to run too fast. This allows for good stretching of the plantar fascia. Then progress to a steep hill once you have gotten used to running backwards and running backwards downhill. I don't really recommend that you try to run backwards with your dog, especially with your dog on a leash that you're holding on to. Going uphill is one thing, but going downhill is very easy for the dog to just bolt or see something like a rabbit or something and take off. And if you're not careful, you'll end up on your back on the pavement. A very unpleasant sensation, believe me. This is a fairly steep hill, and you have to be very careful going down a steep hill like this to not get going too fast, because if you get going too fast, your feet just can't keep up with it, and your body weight will just pull you over onto the pavement. Again, a very unpleasant sensation. Warning, and this is exceptionally important, running backwards can be hazardous to your health. I've fallen twice now, admittedly over the past 15 years, but the most recent was just the other day when I turned to see where my dog was. I did a front to back 180 with a half gainer to land on some very unforgiving concrete. If you are the least bit unstable, running backwards is not for you. Try to stretch your plantar fascia any other way possible, for instance by standing on a curb on your toes and letting your heel then sink lower than the edge of the curb. Conventional therapy, I really don't see any place here for conventional therapy. If proper stretching and vitamin C can't fix the problem, I would just increase the stretching and vitamin C until it did fix the problem. And this is definitely not a surgical condition. I can't imagine why anybody would even think of doing surgery for something like this. Acute plantar fasciitis, when you first start to stretch the plantar fascia and it's inflamed, you have to be careful to avoid any pain. Always listen to the pain, and if you feel any pain, then stop stretching and try again later. Keep working at this though until you get to where you can stretch it out. And once you get it fairly well stretched out, and you maybe do run some hills backwards or at least do something to keep it stretched, you should be done with it. Thanks for your time. I hope you find this helpful for your running and or basketball or whatever you're doing on your feet that has brought on your plantar fasciitis. This video has been brought to you by drmiracle.com, metabolism101.com, and themiraclediet.com. Thanks again for your time and your attention.